Real quick before we jump into the video, guys, for the rest of this year I'm going to be on a fundraising campaign to raise a minimum of £1,000 for the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. For more information on the charity and what it does, and for the donation links, please look in the description below. And thank you all for your continued support. Enjoy the show.
So I get frequently asked, how can I be a Pokemon streamer? How do I download the ROMs? Where do I download the emulators? How do I resize all my screens? How do I randomize all the files? And all of that. So I'm going to show you how you can turn your stream into something like this. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Rybomy Teacher in the house, and I'm here to teach you guys how to be a Pokemon streamer, much like what I do every single day. Hey, during the week, Monday to Friday, 8 PM UK time. For those who haven't seen it, my Twitch is down below. So I get asked a lot of these questions constantly on where do I get all the ROMs from and everything like that. So I'm going to make this video to teach you basically everything you need to know about being a Pokemon streamer before you get going. So on the screen right now is a Google Drive file. The link to this will be down in the description, of a perfect Pokemon starter kit made by my good friend Average Gaming 017. His Twitch will be linked down below as well with this, so if you do use his files you do download from here, please make sure you go follow him and thank him for this toolkit, because he spent a lot of time putting all of this together. So I'll show you guys what's briefly in this toolkit for you guys to understand. All of these are folded up nicely. You've got badges for every single region in here. It is missing one though. Interestingly, I think it's missing Alola, but that's fine, whatever. Because Alola, of course, has the trial thingamabobs. There's some free Nuzlocke layouts here if you are struggling for a layout and you just want something to start you out. These are not bad to go for, but if you've got a bit of money and a bit of budget sparing by, I recommend you go hit up my boy Nerdo King. His link, as always, will be down in the description below in the videos. He made my layouts, so if you guys have seen my layouts and you love my layouts, he's the man who made them. He's made a bunch of layouts for multiple members of my community. Mr. Good Friend Hermes Game Corners community, and of course his own. He's extremely talented. He does a lot of things, so if you got the money to spare, definitely invested in him if you want some nice layouts, but these are nice ones to get you started. Next thing, the most important thing here are the games. It's been very kindly split into the DS games. There's a whole bunch of them in here as well. This is actually very nice because it does give you Heart Gold, Soul Silver as well. There's obviously the 3DS games as well. There's the Game Boy games, all the way through to multiple different Crystal versions, which is interesting. There's also the Pokemon Trading Card game in here if you're interested in the side games, and Pinball as well, which is definitely a lot of fun. And then, of course, the Game Boy Advance games as well. All of them are in here, everything you need. And right at the very start as well, for the emulators, there's the DS emulator and the Visual Boy Advance emulator. The Citra emulator is not in here, which is what you use for the 3DS games. However, if you simply just Google Citra emulator, the first link will take you to here. And the download is right here. I'll put this link in the description as well for you guys as well. Now, alongside that, there's some nice little font packs. Some games do have font packs because they have unusual fonts in them. It's worth downloading those and having them installed on your computer just to make sure that you have them. In here as well is the randomizer. I would use the most up-to-date one, the 402, because it is the most updated one. If you're loading 3DS games after you've extracted it, make sure you use the launcher one, not the Rando ZX. For some reason, there's a bug on this one that doesn't work for 3DS games. Don't know why that is the case. There's some ROM hacks here, which are actually some games that I might be playing soon. We will see, because Congo's here, which is a pretty fun game. There's Radical Red, Renegade Platinum, Blazing Emerald, Delta Emerald, Moon Silver, which is one I haven't actually heard of at all, so that's interesting. And there's some sprites here as well. People often ask me about sprites on layouts. There's the GIF files and the PNG, whichever you prefer. So this is everything you are going to need to get started to be a Pokemon streamer. So that's going to be the first thing. Alright, so the next thing you're going to need to know, you've got all the ROMs downloaded, you've got all the randomizers and all the sprites downloaded and everything you need. But the next common question I always get asked is, how do I get the two different size screens, particularly for the DS and the Citra games? And the trick to this is actually very simple. All you need to do is window capture the emulator not once, but twice. And the reason why you do this is because this allows you to crop the windows individually so that you can separate the screens out to be one is the top screen and one is the bottom screen. While you're doing this, by the way, especially if you're window capturing something like Desmumi, I'd recommend you put a little screen gap in between the screens to make it easier to crop with. You can do that just by pressing view on the Desmumi settings. There is an option to have a screen gap. I would just do the narrow border, which is 5 pixels. You don't need it any bigger than that. If you do it any bigger than that, it does actually make cropping a little difficult. But in order to crop the sources, all you would need to do is hold the Alt key on your keyboard and use the middle boxes instead of the corner boxes. It makes it a lot easier, and just essentially crop out what you don't want. And the other reason why I also don't mind having the screen gap in here is if you are putting a border around this, which I recommend doing as it does look a little bit nicer. You've got a little bit of margin for error here once you put the actual border on. And once you've cropped the top screen, on the second one you just crop it down to the bottom screen. And now you have two different screens that you can control individually. Now, I always recommend with the small screen, you always keep it relatively small. Use the diagonal boxes to maintain the aspect ratio. That way it doesn't become stretched and pixelated, which has happened to me in the past, and it's looked like an absolute mess. And then with the top screen, you always want this one pretty big, as this is going to be the main bulk of your gameplay. And again, if you make the main screen pretty big, you can put the border around it, and the main focus of the screen is still going to be the gameplay, which is ideally what you're after. And then, of course, if you have a border or anything like that, make sure you put it around the screen just so it doesn't look like it's just been thrown on the layout and it looks a little bit out of place. But that's the pro tip for getting two different size screens. Alright then, so the last thing we're going to look at is randomizer settings. You've got your ROMs, you've got your emulators, you've got everything else you need to do, but you want to do a randomizer playthrough. So all you're going to need for this is the PokeRando ZX version 4_0_2. And so long as you know where you've saved it, which is really important to know where you saved it, I recommend making some folders for your ROMs and your emulators and your randomizer. It makes this a lot easier, particularly when you extract it. Make sure you click the one that says Launcher. This works for every single game. Sometimes it can be a little slow to load, but this is the kind of window that you are going to get. I'll maximize it. No, maximizing looks ugly. But we will leave it like this. So, this is where you can randomize pretty much whatever you want, depending on the game that you are playing. And in order to do that, make sure you open the ROM. And this is where knowing where you saved your ROM files is extremely important. So, if you're not doing a friend of mine like Cashew, who just downloaded it to wherever he wants, and then spends 5 minutes finding it, then you might have a bit of a hard time. As you can see, I have a bunch of different ROMs because I've played a lot of Pokemon over the years. So just for sake of argument, we'll pick the playthrough I'm doing right now, which is Pokemon X. We can use this Pokex ROM because this is a standard one. And then once you have opened the ROM, you'll see all of these options appear to you. Now, these options will vary depending on which game you are picking. If you're picking a Generation 1 game, for example, abilities will be checked out because there are, of course, no abilities in Generation 1, or 2 for that matter. But there are things in Generation 3. Now, I'm not going to make a randomized file here necessarily, but I'm going to show you some of the things that I like to do with my randomized ROMs. So base stats I generally don't change, however I do like to update them to the most recent gen, and the reason for that is some Pokemon got buffed, some Pokemon got nerfed in later gens. For example, Aegislash lost some base stats, and also King Shield got changed, but we won't worry too much about that. Now, in some instances, some people standardize the XP curves. That can vary, it depends. Standardizing the XP curves makes grinding a little easier throughout the game, should you wish to do so. But it's not entirely necessary. Pokemon types I don't always change, but I do like to do random abilities. And I don't often ban the trapping abilities because I think it's kind of frustrating at times. Sometimes I ban Wonder Guard, but in some playthroughs I've actually left Wonder Guard up, which has left me some interesting ones in my Black 2 playthrough where I had 3 different Pokemon I had Wonder Guard, which was kind of fun. So there's a lot of things like that. Sometimes you can follow the evolution. I tend to ban negative and bad abilities if it was me personally. And again, evolutions, some people randomize the evolutions. I know my friend Hermes Game Corner did a randomizer of Ultra Sun where he randomized the evolutions. You don't have to. But I would recommend if you are playing later gen games or games that are generation, well, any gen really, change the impossible evolutions. This means that Pokemon that normally evolve via trading, like Machoke, Haunter, and those kind of Pokemon, Graveler, they actually evolve by level up using this, and make them easier as well, because there are some Pokemon that evolve at ridiculously high levels, like Dino, for example, evolves at 64, which is one of the latest evolutions in the game. I think Braviary is like 59 and something like that. It's crazy high. By making the evolutions easier, you're likely to run into fully evolved Pokemon a little bit more. Pokemon will evolve a little bit faster. Starters, statics, and trade. I like to randomize completely with this one. Some people do random basic with 2 evolutions. This will give you pretty much most forms of starters. And here is my favorite one, particularly in the later gens, is allow alternate forms. This means that the different forms of Rotom, different forms of Deoxys and stuff like that can definitely appear as starters. This does also mean that Pokemon like Megas can be starters as well. For those who are watching my X series that's also up on this channel, you'll know that that's a thing. We started with a Mega Aggron, so that's definitely a thing. Definitely randomize the statics. They can definitely create some rather interesting ones. Sometimes people do swap legendaries and stuff like that, and then just allow the alternate forms. This can be that the Pokemon is a Mega. I actually had an interesting moment in my X playthrough in the last episode where our Xerneas encounter turned out to be a Rotom, which, funny enough, is actually considered a legendary. I found that out after the fact. And then randomize in-game trades entirely. Moves and movesets. This is one that probably varies the most, but keep it up to date generations. For those that play a lot of Pokemon, it's always nicer. And here's where it gets interesting. Now, some people don't randomize movesets at all, particularly if you are relatively new to Nuzlocke. Probably best not to randomize the movesets, but if you are someone who's played Nuzlocke before, I like to do random completely, but guaranteed 4 moves. And the reason I do this is that it allows Pokemon that typically don't get many moves at level 1. For example, Togepi, its level 5 moveset even is Growl and Charm. It doesn't get anything else. It doesn't get Metronome until a little bit later. Randomizing the movesets and giving it 4 moves gives it a chance to have an attacking move, so it can actually do some damage, so it's not completely useless. Foe Pokemon, of course, the trainer Pokemon, always randomize them. Now these you can pretty much do whatever you want with. I like to do Force Fully Evolved at level 40 in most games. There are some games I do it less than that. And part of the reason for that is at level 40, you're starting to get through the midpoint and the latter stages of the game. This will allow you to basically face harder Pokemon, which means that when you're training up for EXP and stuff like that, particularly when you're fighting trainer battles, it will make improvement a little bit easier. Obviously, allow how alternate forms and swap Mega Evolvables. These are always interesting ones to do. There are things that you can do with like double battle modes and stuff like that. I personally don't do this. I know some people do, but you can do the additional Pokemon for all of these boss trainers. I don't tend to do regulars, but I tend to make sure that all the boss Pokemon have 6 Pokemon and all the important trainers have 6 Pokemon. The regular trainers can stay as they are, because honestly, regular trainers is whatever. Now again, some people ban Wonder Guard. I choose not to half the time, but it's kind of interesting when you keep hold of it. Wild Pokemon, of course, you want to completely random. I don't do the additional rules at all, usually. But I do randomize the held items and ban the bad items, of course, and allow alternate forms. Generally, in the later games, especially Gen 6 and 7, if you can randomize for Mega Evolutions possibility, definitely worth doing it. It can definitely be really fun encountering Mega Evolutions in the wild and actually trying to catch them, particularly pre-made Megas. So that's something to consider. These modes, I don't personally like doing them, but some people do. Not my cup of tea. Alright, TMs. Now, I usually do full HM compatibility and random TMs, and part of the reason for this is this allows me to get some really interesting moves, but it does also mean that I don't have to try and find a specific HM slave. I can just give a necessary HM to a Pokemon if I need to. And of course, no game-breaking moves is a must. The last thing you want is your game crashing when you're trying to get through the game, because it can really cause you a lot of problems, especially with TMs that are moves that are not necessarily coded into game. For example, Light of Ruin is AZ Floette's signature move, but if it becomes a TM, Historically, it used to break X and Y. I don't know if it still does, but that used to be a thing. I think these days it's just banning like the annoying moves, like Dragon Rage, Sonic Boom, and Spore. Although Spore feels a little bit weird, but Spore in Gen 1 was like stupidly broken, and Oko moves, of course, were very much broken back then. So yeah, obviously in the later days, this just bans Sonic Boom and Dragon Rage nowadays. And the rest of it, I tend to leave the same. I don't tend to change anything else here. Some people do randomize the TM compatibility. I'm personally not a fan of that. I don't think it's necessary. Items, definitely randomize the field items and ban the bad ones. This gives you a chance of some pretty good items, including Master Balls and Lucky Eggs and stuff like that. I've had a few of those in the past. And I do like to randomize the special shops. These can definitely give you a lot of interesting stuff. You can often do the ban bad items. Some ban the regular shop items. This just means that you always get everything that's not like potion and stuff like that. These can be very interesting if you want to, but again, this is a personal preference. Ban the overpowered shop items. Some people do this, but I like the chance of getting Lucky Eggs or Master Balls and stuff like that. Balance shop item prices, honestly, this can be fun. Definitely can be interesting. It can definitely change the prices, but I don't like doing that. I'm just used to regular prices. And guarantee evolution items, this can be interesting, but honestly, I don't think it's necessary in most playthroughs, because when you randomize field items, you generally get a lot of items anyway. And then the miscellaneous tweak, I always do fastest text, and obviously don't revert the temporary alt forms. This includes things like Mega Evolution. Now, once you have finished randomizing all of your settings as to whatever you prefer, make sure you click Randomize Save. Do not click Pre-Made Seed. I've heard a lot of people do this one. But if you click Randomize Save, now, personally, the best thing you can do with this option here is to layer it as a CXI, because CXI files can be read by Citra. LED FS, I don't believe can. Go to your ROMs folder, whatever game you are doing. This is X in my case. And then I will just call it test, as this is the one that we are testing. And then once it is done saving all of the randomizer settings, that is all you need to do. So at that point then, once this is finished saving, sometimes it can take a minute. This is something to bear in mind, but I will show you etc. as and when. Let me see if I can actually. You get Citra up. Window capture. I think I have a Citra window open already. So here is Citra, of course, just over on my screen, but I will window capture it anyway so you guys can see what's going on. But after window capture in Citra, just here, that's all I'm going to need to do. I don't have my controller plugged in, but once you load it up, just resize the windows as I showed you before, and then you can get on playing. It is as simple as that. There is nothing too complicated about it, but yeah, that is all you need to know about randomizing Pokemon ROMs. That is all you need to know about how to stream ROMs, etc, etc. If you have any more questions for me, if there's anything else you'd like me to cover, definitely let me know down in the comments below. But either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Rybombi Teacher. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.